if you smell what the Rock is cooking.
Acknowledge me.
You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
We are bad to the bone. Get it? Bad to the bone.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
I'll fight anybody. Who do you want? Just let me fight him.
Let me tell you something, Jim Ross.
Mega power, yeah.
We got it for you.
We are the best of the best.
Woo! Wheeling, dealing.
Smart marks.
And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, come one, come all. This is episode 1 of Talk 'em in the Building. I'm Adrian. You already know it's no BS coming from me. And I'm joined by 2 of my wrestling pals or wrestling buddies. Got to work on that. I'm joined by 2 of my great wrestling friends, man. Guys that in my years as a wrestling fan, I've met some really cool people from across the states, and these are two of my favorites. So I'm honored for y'all to join me on this venture on Suplex Dinner Club, and I'm looking forward to growing Talk 'em in the Building. So introducing first a fellow Atlantan, one of the good brothers. What's going on, Greg? How you living?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm honored to be here, man. I appreciate you even bringing me on to Suplex Dinner Club family. I feel good about this.
Definitely, man. Looking forward to it. On the West Coast,
What's up?
we got the doctor out of lead. How are you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling it, man. I'm excited. I'm excited about the venture. I'm excited about the platform, about the network that you're growing here.
Yes, sir.
And just who could have thought that, going on 6 years later, we'd be here.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Meeting at a New Japan show, sitting, breaking bread over tacos before seeing Naito.
Straight up,
And here we
man.
are.
Shout out to Long Beach. That was a wonderful trip, and going out to Chicago, meeting you out in Chicago, that was a dope trip also. And also Greg and I have traveled WrestleManias together.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to him. Shout out to Randy, Byron, all the WrestleMania traveling group we have going. So shout out to those people.
Even though we're both from Atlanta, we actually met in Dallas at WrestleMania. Just happened to come across each other at a midnight show.
Mm-hmm. And I had a cowboy hat on.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, man, it's fun.
Two things that are solid always: the point and the cowboy hat for Mitchum already.
Exactly. That's my gimmick. All right, so this podcast, we named it Talk 'em in the Building. So I'm gonna go to you first, Greg. I want to get a good, solid definition of what's a wrestling promo.
Man, so what's a wrestling promo? So I grew up, in the 80s. I would say that's when I kind of got hooked. So when I think about a wrestling promo, they always talked about talking them into the building. It's something that hypes a match, connects with you emotionally. It's kind of that thing that really tells the story. I mean, the match is secondary, to be quite honest. It's the promo that brings it in. It's the promo that tells the story. It's the promo that hooks you and brings you in. Whether you hate them, you love them, it's the tone, it's the delivery. It kind of makes you identify with that person. And I know we're going to dig deep into that over these next several months and weeks and years. But to me, that's what a promo does. You call it a promo because you promote something, right? Exactly. And back in the day, the promo they made their money off of the house. And how do you get them into the house? How do you get them into here in Atlanta? How did you get them into the Omni? How did you talk them in on Sunday night? And it was Dusty, it was Ole, it was Flair, it was Wyndham, it was the Rock and Roll Express, it was the Freebirds, and they talked you into that building.
That's a great definition, man. Adelie, you got anything to add to that?
I'll piggyback on it. So you got me thinking about venues. Out here we got the Grand Olympic, which was known for boxing, but wrestling, lucha, that was huge. And you got the preeminent. You had Gorgeous George, and my dad talks about going to boxing shows and kind of being hooked into the wrestling part of it because of promos, because you had personalities who the audience hated. But guess what? Those were paying folks, right? That's who filled the audience, because you really wanted to see this guy get his butt kicked. And for me, what makes that promo is that it's that individuality, it's that personality where you start blurring the line to see, I think that's more of a modern take, but you blur the line to like, who is this person really, and what's motivating them, and that's how it's influencing their character, so to speak. And you know, people speak about that blurred line in terms of is that behind the scenes things, or is that something that's really happening on the stage? And I think the best promos are the ones that make you question everything about the wrestling in itself. And I like to just sit back and be the fan, right? Because ultimately that's all we are, right? We're fans, and
Amen.
we're here to get into the building. And what's the beauty of it is, going back over 3 decades now, is what keeps me going really are promos. The wrestling has evolved and it'll continue to evolve, but give someone a live mic in front of a crowd, and you can't fake that, right?
Amen.
You have to be on it, and you have to tug at people's heartstrings, so to speak.
Definitely. That's a great addition to that definition. What you said earlier, Greg, which was you're telling the story before the story is even actually presented, before two wrestlers are even locking up. We know we either already know who we want to cheer, who we want to boo, and we definitely know what result we want to see. And the promo drives all of that. So that's part of the reason why we made this podcast. As wrestling is evolving into something even more athletic and awe-inspiring, the promo was always so important to us growing up. And I don't think it nearly gets the love and respect that it truly deserves. Of course, you got some current wrestlers that are great with their promo, but overall, there's been a slight shift. And on this podcast, we're gonna refocus that shift. We're gonna hype the hype man. We're gonna talk about the talkers, and of course, we gotta pontificate about the promo, or pontificate on the promo. And that's the reason why we made this podcast. So, listeners, if this is your first time checking us out, we're first and foremost, thank you. We're very thankful. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to Suplex Dinner Club. We're a growing brand, growing family, and we definitely want you to be a part of it. So, gentlemen, today's episode, since this is our first episode, we want the listeners to know more about us. Today's topic, who talked you in the building? I love that. Who talked you in the building? So I'm going to start with you, Greg. We want to know, the people want to know, who got you into wrestling? Who talked you in the building?
Man, okay. So it's probably going to be a long story, but when I was in 4th grade, my brother first took me to wrestling. I'd never seen it. I'd never nothing. So my first exposure to it was literally walking into the Omni and watching a match. And in that main event was Ole Andersen and Dusty Rhodes versus the Assassins in a Texas Bull Rope match. Now, mind you, I'm a little kid, and dude, I had never seen this much blood in my life. Like, I had, and this is legit, I had nightmares afterwards. Like, my mom was like, oh my God, he's been scarred for life. I was scarred in a whole nother way. I've been a wrestling fan ever since.
Amen.
But what got me after that was the next month is when Ole turned on Dusty. Ole in the cage turned on Dusty. The Assassins beat him down. Ivan Koloff was one of the special guest referees. He beat him down. Gene Andersen was the other special guest referee. They all just jumped him. And if you go look it up on YouTube, I think we're gonna put the link in the description below.
Definitely.
But if you go watch it, you will see fans trying to jump over this, trying to get in. Now, I know we're talking about the promo, but the promo after that, we talked about telling a story. At the time, I didn't know Ole Andersen was the one that was hooking me. Not really until I looked back did I realize it's Ole that hooked me into this storyline. But Ole told a story, a year-long journey of how he had to smile with these guys of Mr. Wrestling #2 with Tommy Rich, and how he hated it, and how Gene Andersen wouldn't even come be by his side because he couldn't believe he was associating. But the crux of the whole story is prior to that, him and Dusty had a feud. And Dusty said in that, it will never be over. It will never be over. And that's what Ole Anderson went back to. He said, Dusty, you said it. You said it would never be over. You're the one who said it, and it will never be over. And he plotted this whole thing for a year to where he never asked Dusty to be his partner. Dusty came to him, and he got in that ring, and he turned on Dusty, and he said in the whole thing, Ivan didn't know. The assassins didn't know. Only Gene knew. And they beat down Dusty, and that hooked me into this whole storyline. And the passion he gave, like watching it again, watching it over, is one of the best promos I've ever seen. The passion. And they're in, Georgia Championship Wrestling. They're in the studio of TBS.
Right.
Those people are losing their minds.
Of course.
I mean, losing their minds to the point you can almost not even hear Ole talk. And then they cut to a promo of Dusty. And Dusty talking about how he should have known. And he's all bandaged up. Because the promo to me is not just what you're saying. It's the whole presentation. It's, how am I dressed? How am I carrying myself?
Right.
And Dusty looks dejected. He knows he made a mistake. He knows he screwed up. And he even makes a statement, this once pretty face, because he's got bandages on. But he talks about Ole and Gene. Next time in the Omni, I'm bringing Andre the Giant. So now you have the Andersons going to go up against Andre and Dusty. And we're off to the races, man. And they come right back, and Ole goes off on them again. The whole storytelling is ridiculous because now all these dots were connected through one promo that lasts approximately not even 8 minutes because Ivan Koloff in the middle, approximately 8 minutes, a full 12 months, if not longer, story. And it's like, oh my gosh, everybody was sucked in. What I remember about being in the Omni that night is people losing their minds, how happy they were. Because I wasn't there when he turned, but I mean, when Dusty and Ole won, the place went crazy. And Ole was so popular at the time. And I know it's a lot of people like, Ole was popular. I know. And so that whole turn, man, it's crazy because if you look it up, there's also a commentary about Jim Cornette talking about it and how it's one of the greatest promos and angles he's ever seen in his life to this day. And it was definitely the best promo that Ole Anderson ever cut. I mean, it was the passion, dude. It just sucked you in. And then you sit there and you're like, this jerk, man, he played the hero. He played him. And there you're looking at Dusty, and Dusty's sitting there, and he knows he's been played. And he knows he made the mistake, and he shouldn't have trusted the devil. And, dude, it was so good. And in that moment, I was hooked. But what's crazy is it's not that I was hooked on Dusty. And it's not that I was hooked on Ole. I was hooked on professional wrestling.
Okay. I like that.
Why don't you be quiet for about 2 seconds and let me talk and say something? You know, you're talking about a leopard doesn't change his spots. You're exactly right. The leopards don't change their spots, and there's awfully good reasons. Dusty Rhodes himself was the one that said it could never be over. You just better give me the credit for being smart enough to outfox Dusty Rhodes. I want you to take a look right now at Dusty Rhodes. I brought something down that I had filmed a long time ago when I saw it. He was completely fooled, as was everybody else. Dusty Rhodes, if it's the last thing I do, you're going to be out of wrestling permanently. Me, Ole Anderson, I'm going to see to it.
Oh, okay.
When he said that would never be over.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying is like when he said it would never be over, that Dusty promo, he kicks it in. I'm like, dude, it's such long-term storytelling. It's ridiculous.
That's awesome, man.
How much of that do you think is like organic? It's like, they had that seed of an idea and then they run with it, because
I don't know.
Nowadays you think, behind the scenes, like maybe they're planning ahead, maybe they're not. But then it just seemed like, they were booking the territory. So they were like, hey, if this is selling tickets, let's keep it going,
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you could hear those kids in the crowd or people in the crowd. I'm sure it was adults and kids just going nuts, just like, screw you, Ole, for, screwing over our hero, Dusty. So, man, that's dope, man. That's awesome. How did you feel experiencing that promo? Like from the very, very onset, what were the feelings?
I think when I was really young at the time, right? So I was just mad. All I remember is being mad at Oli, but I still remember, the story. I remembered the story, and I remembered Dusty losing his mind, and all I wanted was Dusty to get his comeuppance because I couldn't believe he did that for that long. I just remember being mad. As I got older, I realized how awesome it was. It's
Yeah,
like you
for
look
sure.
back and go, dude, it was so real. I mean, it was passionate. It was not scripted by any stretch, but he knew what he's going to go after. But it was so real, and it sucked in every person. You could hear it.
Right.
And having
Definitely.
been in that studio audience before multiple times during WCW runs, like WCW Saturday nights and stuff like that, there's only maybe 100 people, if that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they're losing their minds. And you hear it like to the point that you could almost not even hear Oli. And so it sucked you in emotionally. And because he was so good at being bad, you love Dusty more. And
That's
I would argue when you talk about talking him into the building, and we talk about Dusty, and we talk about all the faces, it's the heels that talked you into the building.
Yeah.
that's a fact. That's a fact, man. That's a fact. Nah, that's a great example, and I know any listeners that are more modern day wrestling fans, go back and look at some of that stuff. If there's ever a point where I get bored of what's going on in today's product, I can always go back to that stuff and just find myself submerged the entire weekend to the point where my wife's like, yo, come on. You are married, sir. You can't just watch Dusty all weekend. I'm like, maybe you need to sit down and watch this too.
Well, on that point, doing research for the show, right? Like I left autoplay on YouTube, and I was spoiled because it would just show you. It was just like, oh, you like that Dusty promo? Here's another, and then you're just spoiled. You're like, this is amazing. This is, and it's just the context changes, but the quality is consistent, right? It's
Yes.
still there. He's drawing you in. He's making you believe, like you said, that's really the crux of it. It's how he made you feel more than anything, and by virtue of that, Oli making seeming like the most horrible person in the world.
Exactly. Now here's the other thing that I'm going to bring it home with you for one big change from then to now. If we were to fast forward, you see Dusty. What he cuts during that promo is this Sunday night or this Friday night at the Omni at 7:30. What's he doing? Telling you when, telling you where, telling you how. I mean, all of that, right? You don't have to do that today. Today, you got Michael Cole telling you to turn on a PLE. You got Jim Ross, telling you to buy the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You got that. You didn't have that then. So the baby faces would always bring in the when and where. The heels didn't as much. Every once in a while, but it's the baby faces was telling you, hey, come be with me, come see me, basically, and come support because we're gonna be there at this time, at this place. Da, 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 da. And it's like when you start to see those little nuances of how it was then compared to today, it's just cool to watch.
And speaking of today, what current performer, Greg, would you even compare to what we just finished checking out with Dusty and Oli?
Cody.
Yeah.
Who else brings in the emotion? And whether it was at All In, the original All In, when he sucked people in with that story, whether it was this past year, last year, talking about I gotta finish the story, or whether it's every single thing he does, it sounds so genuine, and that he has a unique way of connecting. I'll tell you another one I think that has gone bananas is Roman.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here's how you know how good Roman is. When Sammy had them busting up about losing the Uzi, not feeling very Uzi,
Yeah.
Roman took that to a different level. It's Roman who laughed, but the way he played it was like, okay, that's fine. Oh, so this is what's going on? You're not feeling Uzi? I mean, that tells you how far that dude has come. But to take that promo that Sammy said, and to me, Sammy took it to a 8 or a 9, and Roman took it to a 12 because of how he did it. And then if you think about when Jay turned around and said, "Oh no, 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 you stay right here." I mean, just the way he's played little things,
Grabs him in, yeah.
and the difference with Roman and Cody is a very different cadence. It's just talking to your buddy. It's not screaming. It's not yelling. It's not the traditional wrestling promo. It's especially with Roman, smart-assy. It's snarky, and it's just cocky to the point where you just don't like them for those reasons.
Right.
So to me, they're two of the best in the business.
Ali, man, what do you have, man? Who talked you in the building?
I'm enjoying Greg's storytelling here. Like what a brilliant. I'm like, I want to go back. I want to go to the Omni now. Like I want to go back to those times. I'm kind of the same. I mean, I was a kid, and the promo I'm going to focus on here, but for me, it was Saturday mornings. You know, we had WWF superstars, and I remember being 5 and 6 years old, and you're 5 and 6. You just want color, right? So for me, in contrast to Greg, it was really this idea of I was very much about the classic pro wrestler, promo, the stereotypical, I'm going to yell at you and still draw you into the building because of how you made me feel. And this is where you're going to see the distinction, where the difference between when I'm 5 and 6 to later when I'm 14 and it's formative years, right? Because I did grow up in the Attitude Era, sue me, but that's the reality. It really created this kind of personality change and reinvigorated my love of wrestling, because when I was 5 and 6, I was play wrestling with my friends, right? We all chose a wrestler. We all chose our favorite. I was a big Warrior guy. I was a big Macho guy for very obvious reasons, right? The tassels, the color, the hat, the paint, the shaking of the ropes, the music. It was cartoonish. It didn't matter what he said, right? I can't recall a Warrior promo. I love Macho now in retrospect because, he had, now everybody looks back at, overanalyzes his promos. But at the time, how they made me feel was happy, right? I was happy to turn on the TV, turn on the Saturday. I wasn't looking for the cartoons. I was looking for pro wrestling. And then we emulate what they were doing in the context of wrestling. We grab our little, paper, leftover paper roll and hold it up as a mic and be speaking into our fake cameras or whatever it be. But it was fun. It really made me feel like those people were speaking to me. And yeah, I didn't have the money to go to a show, and my family were not wrestling fans per se. The promo that specifically calls to me, thinking of something that was really formative, because I really thought through about who I wanted to be specific with. And it wasn't necessarily, I'm going to say it's The Rock, but it was the context of who The Rock was interacting with. This comes from the pilot episode of SmackDown. Now, this is where people kind of forget this. SmackDown debuts in the fall of '99 as part of the UPN kind of lineup. They had just bought, space there. They got the space there. But people forget, and I for years I thought it was a fever dream, to be honestly. I'm like, I saw them do SmackDown with the Raw set, and the corporate ministry was there. Like, am I imagining this? No, it actually happened. So this takes place. Rock makes his classic entrance, and in the entrance he gives a very classic Rock promo, right? Right. And he's about to face the corporation, and he's somewhat on friendly terms with Stone Cold, and he's interrupted by Stone Cold. And glass shatters, he comes in, he does his piece, I hate you, Rock, you're a piece of trash, this, that, and they're doing, nowadays we take it for granted because we're like, they were doing the greatest hits. It's like McMahon said, like, go sell the show, this is our impression to a national audience, because we're not going to debut the show for like another 4 months, so give them a taste. Right? And that was talking him into the building. Because up until then, the way I was watching TV, the way I was watching wrestling was at my cousin's house, because they had cable. I did not have cable. VHSs, right? I'd go to the local video store and rent some compilation of Raw or some compilation of or some pay-per-views, and that was essentially what I spent my money on, was that. But that particular episode was so symbolic of that time, was encapsulated the way Rock spoke, encapsulated kind of, and Rock was just about there. He was babyface essentially, and Rock, Stone Cold had his year. He had his 98, so he was coming off of that. So he's fully developed, fully entrenched. And then you have Shane McMahon interrupt, and he gives his piece, and then he brings in Undertaker, and then you have the Unholy Alliance of the corporate ministry, and they're all giving these promos that separately they're promos that are fine, and they're very classic of their personalities, but together they really signal to me this change, and in almost pro wrestling where SmackDown, right, because that was a Rock catchphrase, became a promo show for lack of a better word for a good while as it started, right? Because you were tuning in to see them. I was tuning in to see Rock, right? And that really drew me in because there was this idea, there's this larger-than-life guy that's cool, that has it together, that you're hanging off. He had so many catchphrases. And this particular promo, as we'll see in a moment here, he's starting to develop that air that now you see him doing in stadiums, right? You saw him when he did it. He came back in Colorado, right, where he'll let the audience finish the line for him. He was doing that a little. He wasn't that confident yet with it, but he was kind of letting the audience finish his catchphrases. And at the end of that show, I just remember, I believe they close, and maybe in my version, the way I remember it, because the clip that we're going to show is cut off, but they close with the ministry, the corporation of the ministry gathering and being at the top of the Raw set, because the SmackDown set wasn't even built yet, right? And it was like, I was left thinking, where's this going to go? And obviously I had to watch Raw because there wouldn't be a SmackDown for 4 months. But it made me feel invigorated and made me become a fan again, because I was somewhat of a lapsed fan from the time that I was a kid to that time. And I come back that Monday, that next week to the playground, to the middle school playground. We're about to. That would have been the year I started high school. I started high school that year. Everybody's talking about it. It's the talk of the town. And for the next 4 years during high school, that's what it was. Right? Everybody was invigorated. Every Monday night, every Thursday night, because SmackDown wasn't a Thursday, that was what you talked about. Yeah. Yo, did you see that Rock promo? Oh, did you see Stone Cold? And then it just evolved, right? Over the years, that's how my love of Eddie Guerrero came in, and being, seeing that representation, and him never really being on the mic. He was never a mic guy in WCW. He was never a mic guy. He was even more of a mic guy when he was like with Gringos Locos back in Mexico. He was more in caps, and he would draw in the crowd there. But that show really signified a lot of my love for pro wrestling from the promo standpoint, because it just signified a change in how most of the audience consumed. Because there's one thing to be on cable, there's another thing to be on national TV.
I do miss first period on Mondays after a pay-per-view and Tuesdays after Monday Night Raw. Yeah, like it was no productivity being done.
Absolutely.
It was, we were talking about wrestling and what happened.
And I'll vamp a little bit, because I think it's funny that for a while, I remember my cousin super being into Stone Cold, and I'm like, who's, I knew of Stone Cold because I was casually aware of WCW and everything, but he was coming up, no, you gotta watch him, and then he was starting to find his character. Man, they should have never said that, because that's all I wanted to see now. And then I was stuck because I didn't have cable, so I was living through the occasional time I was going to their house and video and VHSs. So, I saw that rise almost in moments.
Shane McMahon, Triple H, last Monday on Raw, you two jabronis decided to check both your candy asses in to the SmackDown Hotel. So you go on and let the great one be the first one to break the bad news to you two, Rudy. Like The Rock was saying, let him be the first one to break the bad news to you two, Rudy Poo Candy Asses. That you damn sure checked in you two will damn sure check out. But you don't check out without a little departing gift from The Rock, which is his fist in your mouth and his foot in your ass.
Well, I think that he just gave The Rock a little gesture as an answer. Michael, I don't see how these two can even share the same ring together.
Let me come out here and get this straight right off the bat. Last week and tonight you come out here talking all you trash about Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'll tell you this, you will always be, in my eyes, some punk kid running around out here spitting out nursery rhymes.
We got company.
No chance. That's what you got. It's Shane McMahon. Look at the two of you. You can't get along. You want to tear each other's heads off. You make each other sick to their stomachs. And you know what? That is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, so it's such a time capsule, that whole piece there. And that, you know, I saw Greg react there, and it's just like, geez, it's like, you could have thought that was like 100,000 people in that stadium, you know, with that many, you know, sizing it up. But it's so tough because they set the bar so high, considering the reactions that we're getting, the merchandising, and it was not just let's talk him into the building, because good luck getting a ticket, right? You could get tickets were affordable, but people were hanging off the rafters, right? People wanted to see promos. There was great wrestling still going on, but that was almost secondary to it. But we're talking about merchandising, like these promos became catchphrases, became T-shirts, you know, Stone Cold's, you know, I mean, I literally wearing like a bootleg rock, you know, old school rock shirt here. Literally the name of the show comes from a word in his promo, SmackDown, right? And it's Forever the People's Show, right? And it's so brilliant. It's such a, it's so nostalgic. I don't think it'll ever deviate from me in that sense, you know.
Your whole tale is pretty interesting in the sense that you were a Laps fan in between the, you know, the golden era of Hogan and Mach and all those guys, all the way to the Attitude Era.
Right before
That's
that.
Like,
right before that, yeah.
Yeah. Like, to even have that lapse while we're growing up, that's like, man, that's interesting, at least to me, because I was locked in, like, as soon as I knew about it, I was locked in.
And what's crazy, it's like, because it was such a gap, because of this, because I mean the VHS still existed, right? It forced me to go back and see everybody else, because I'm like, what's the through line here? Because I love stories, right? Just naturally. So I'm like, you know, what is going on? Because like I was aware of Mach, like you couldn't escape, you know, Bret Hart, and I was aware of it, but I couldn't say I was like super invested in anything like that. And then you had the doldrums of like 96, 97, where it's like casually the like 96, 97 were my 2004 to 2005 kind of, where I was like, I was watching, I knew Batista was, you know, I wasn't as invested in it.
Today's performers, who stands out to you to remind you or give you that vibe of a Rock, of a Stone Cold?
I might give a very, very, maybe there's some recency bias here, but right now at this moment, based on age, based on potential, based on talent, raw talent, and based on not giving a damn about how the crowd's going to react, but really being specific, MJF. I think MJF encapsulates, and it makes sense. You know, you go back to that interview he did when he's a kid. The Rosie O'Donnell asked him, "Who do you want to be?" "Oh, I want to be a Goldberg. I like Goldberg and The Rock." Right? Goldberg wasn't a promo guy. You better believe Rock was. And you go back to his origin story. He had like a learning disability, and this was what was motivating him. This is what, and it was so cool to hear that. Obviously, he's never going to speak that up as a character, but I thought it was so brilliant that pro wrestling gave him that confidence. And you wouldn't think that this guy ever had anything that was perturbing him. Such a brilliant, what a well-spoken, what a thoughtful guy, going back to Greg's point, that can see a through line. right? That is not just speaking in the moment, although he is, but can recall and make points and make connections to things that happened months ago, right? And really talks people into the crowd. Because I remember the last time I saw him live, I'll see him live again, and hopefully hopefully I will be there for Full Gear, but which is coming up, just maybe dating this, but seeing him live at the Forum recently, it was interesting because the whole crowd hushes, right? We're all trying to listen in to what he has to say. Nobody's heading to the restrooms. Nobody's going to concessions. Everybody's locked in. Everybody wants to hear what this guy has to say, even if he's just there to insult the crowd. We're all in for it. We're all in for it.
Nice. I like that. I like how you brought that together, for sure. I love both of you all selections. Mine's slightly different. I will tell you. I'll go ahead and tell you. Growing up, the man who talked me into the building, I never got to see him live. I never got to see him at the Omni. I never got to see him at local shows or anything like that. But I understood him so much because my family, my household worshiped Thunderbolt Patterson. They worshiped that man. He was a superhero in our black household. You know what I'm saying? And it was one of these things where I learned more and more about Thunderbolt Patterson as a little kid because I had older cousins and aunts and uncles in my household, and that's all they talked about. Yes, Hogan was around. Yes, Ric Flair was around and Dusty was around, but it was Thunderbolt Patterson that our whole household was talking about. And looking back on it, because, growing up, of course, you're going to follow whatever your older cousins and everybody, if they love them, of course, I got to love them, right? I look back on these things and matches and promos and that sort of stuff. Thunderbolt was very ordinary looking. That's what I love about him. And that's honestly what talked me ultimately into building, because I looked at Thunderbolt Patterson like he was one of my uncles, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
He looked like the tough guy in the family that if you had a problem, you would bring it to his attention. And he'll take care of it for you. But you better, for a fact, when he comes back in that house, he's going to be cutting up on you. He's going to be yelling at you saying, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you do this? I'll take care of it, but why can't you do it?" It was just that kind of feeling like he was a part of my family. And that's what I got from Thunderbolt Patterson. And one unique thing about his promo style, he reminded me of pastors growing up, like at the church or whatnot, because every Sunday I had to go to church no matter what with my grandmother. Rain, sleet, snow, or hell, if I was sick or fake sick more so, I would have to go to church. And it was times growing up where if the pastor starts to get into his cadence or whatnot, I'm thinking in my head, man, he sounds like Thunderbolt Patterson. so all of those influences just came together, and I just love that guy, man. And here's a clip of the great Thunderbolt Patterson.
Wrestling and you, baby, you were finished. You were washed up. You and Ole Anderson stood out here several months ago, baby, several weeks ago, whining and crying. You want to hit me, don't you? You want to hit me, don't you? Knock the chip off, baby. Come on.
You got a problem.
Come on, baby.
But I will whoop your...
Oh, no, baby.
Hey, man.
You got
not here, please.
Everything that you get, I will whoop you and eat you for dinner.
Hey, baby, you got the problem. And it's Jimmy Hart in the first
Mr. Hart, may I
and
suggest you leave,
here.
sir?
I've got the family watching behind the door, baby.
No,
I suggest you leave, Mr. Hart.
This
You are through, baby.
people like you
You are through, baby.
has problems.
Oh, brother, he does have a problem.
This is a new day. I've been through mess like that from... I'm so full because it all started here. Now he's running up to New York. Now, we talk about New York. You know what that's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ain't nobody You hear what I say? Ain't nobody gonna do a...
Yep, careful, careful.
And I'm full. And whoever you get, you say I've been out a long time, well, all you got to do is get in the circle, because I will whoop your...
Yep.
Whew.
Yep, I think I know where he's coming from.
I am full, Gordon, and I hate to be like this.
And I'm full. That's all I remember from it. Because funny thing about Thunderbolt Patterson, it always seemed like he would be the one cussing, but because he's on national TV, he wouldn't call you an MF, or he would say, and he'll do all these facial reactions, and or like that just reminded me of like aunts and uncles cutting up or whatever, and somebody, oh, you mother, like he would do that.
To me, that makes him even more relatable.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because the way he would censor himself, as opposed to like later on in life, they'd be like, "Oh, kick your butt." Oh, come on, dude.
Right.
You know what you want to say, but he's censoring himself. Like just watching that right there, I felt it. I feel that being around your kids or something, you're like, oh.
Right.
And that's how I got out of him. So yeah, he was connected with me just then.
Yeah.
It makes me think, and it reminds me like how much family plays a role in what influences us, right? And the fact that your family had the foresight, or maybe just the wherewithal to say, this is our guy. We're going to stand behind this guy. And I know, we brought in conversation, representation mattering and being a part of it. And this is a great example of it, right? Where, this is not something that was commonplace. And the fact that they were saying, no, this is who you are going to get behind. And you were with it because you saw your family in him. You saw that envisioned in him. And I think that's really cool because it's powerful. It's powerful the way that not just as fans, but as the kind of people we become.
Definitely. Like my grandmother loved Thunderbolt Patterson. Like you couldn't tell her anything other than Thunderbolt. She loved Dusty also. I will say that, but she loved Thunderbolt Patterson. And today's wrestler that I could say gives me that same kind of vibe of like someone in the family and someone who's tough but relatable is Big E for me. It was always Big E. Like he, I know a lot of people would make fun of his pastor promos. He used to, it always seemed like a Southern pastor or something, but it was relatable, and it reminded me of when Thunderbolt Patterson, when he got revved up, he would start preaching to you and preaching to the people. Come on out, come down this Saturday. I'm taking care of this. Don't worry about it. So I will forever be appreciative of Thunderbolt Patterson. I'm definitely appreciative of my family, like raising me to enjoy his work, because growing up, I never got a chance to personally see him. So Thunderbolt Patterson's always been a part of my heart for sure.
So I gotta add one quick thing, not so much, but watching those clips, all three. How great was Gordon? How awesome was Gordon Solie? Yeah. And what I mean is, because it was kind of like a sandwich, right? How Gordon added to that promo. He added to the Ole Anderson promo, and then you see the more modern stand in the ring and do it yourself. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting. All three are great, but Gordon was like that glue, and it was kind of like, you don't necessarily need that glue today like that, right? Yeah. There are different types of promos, there are different type of storytelling, but back then, like a Gordon or a Lance Russell or those guys just kind of
Lance is one of my favorites. I love Lance.
Yeah, but they connected it, and then they brought emotion too. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's another element that sometimes goes overlooked, and we saw it just, and it was just jumping out at me.
And to your point, Greg, when they know when to lay back, they know when to ask that follow up, and it's a super underrated skill. Absolutely,
it is. But I think the other part is they know when to lay back. But now, later on it becomes a little bit more scripted, and I get it. It's the evolution. It is what it is. They were also the ones who, if they see you stumbling, knew how to jump in. Mm-hmm. And I saw some of these clips over the, I saw some of the Thunderbolt ones, I saw some of the Ole ones, and the other ones where they would jump in because these guys aren't as comfortable, right, at certain times. And they kind of made that quick connection to keep it moving. And that was a skill. I mean, that was just so cool to see how they involve themselves. But to your point, they know how to pull back.
Perfect bridge. They were perfect vehicles to keep it going. Mean Gene was great at that also. I love seeing Mean Gene. Being a pro wrestling fan, being a fan of the professional wrestling promo, one thing that I've noticed is that promos surround us. Promos are everywhere, and it doesn't have to be wrestling related. There are promos that surround each and every one of us. So this promo is honestly one of my favorite promos from someone who's been a bit of a babyface to a heel to an anti-hero, and now I don't know how to even describe this man. So today's point of promos are everywhere is a Mr. Kanye West.
Oh, okay.
Back in 2005, accepting the Grammy for Best Rap Album. Let's check it out.
Y'all might as well get the music ready because it's finna take a while. When I had my accident, I found out at that moment, nothing in life is promised except death. If you had the opportunity to play this game of life, you need to appreciate every moment. A lot of people don't appreciate their moment until it's past. And then you gotta tell those Al Bundy stories. You remember when I... But right now is my time and my moment, thanks to the fans, thanks to the accident, thanks to God, thanks to Rockefeller, Jay-Z, Dame Dash, G, my mother, Rhyme Fest, everyone that's helped me. And I plan to celebrate. I plan to celebrate and scream and pop champagne every chance I get, because I'm at the Grammys, baby. I know everybody asked me the question. They wanted to know what kind. I know he's gonna wild out and he's gonna do something crazy. Everybody wanted to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
That's Babyface Ye right there, man. So long ago.
Yes.
So long ago. I just felt that was a promo, man. That was like a Babyface promo. It was relatable. He did a great job of letting the crowd react to what he was giving. He had timing. At first, it wasn't as confident, but toward the end, he had control of the crowd, and then he left on a banger. Like he left on a great note. Now I can't say much about old Kanye, but at that point, he was definitely a babyface. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on that promo in specific?
You kind of spoke on it there, that there's this like slight hesitation, right? Like you can still see him kind of hesitating with the words and the pacing, but you know what he's trying to say. You know he has some bullet points there along the way, right? And he's allowing some time to breathe. And I'm sure he had that last line rehearsed for sure, but
absolutely.
There's this piece of like still figuring out who he is, still figuring himself in front of a larger audience, and this almost speaks to like acceptance, right? Acceptance with the mainstream, and you know, College Dropout was a huge album. Obviously, don't need to reiterate that, but the fact that his peers finally recognize that, right? And I think that's very telling, and you know, of course we can go on and on about today, but that's a whole different kind of worms. But it's interesting.
No, for sure.
It's interesting to see him, and in that context.
Yeah, for sure. For me, he kind of took you on a ride, right? In the beginning, he connected with you emotionally, and that's what you do, right? You get into a promo, you connect with the people emotionally. What did he go for? He kind of had that shyness. Then he jumped in about the accident. like, oh, yeah, you know what, this dude's overcome some stuff, and he sucked you in, Jake the Snake style, real calm, real slow, real deliberate, and then boom, he went into some energy and said, look, we're gonna have you here, and then boom, we're gonna go up, then I'm gonna bring you right back down. And how am I gonna leave you? I'm gonna leave you right here, not at the top of the hill. We're gonna leave you going up the hill, and that's how he did it. Because now you're like, yeah, you're right. We won't ever know. We'll wonder, what would he have done? That puts that doubt in there. And what does that doubt do? And make you think, well, what would you have done? That sucks you into him. It sucks you into going thinking, man, this dude may. If you're not a fan of his, and if you're just watching the Grammys, and you're not somebody who knows who he is, well, why would he say that? Let me go Google. Why? Oh, he's wild now. Oh, he's this, he's that. But man, what kind of accident did he have? So now you've appealed to people you didn't appeal to before, who are watching the Grammys, and you pulled them in. Now they may be a fan of yours because of your situation. Same thing in wrestling. You sold in the beginning to suck them in. You sold as a babyface, but then you triumphed at the end.
That's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to talking more about these promos. We look forward to growing an audience and growing friends that we can talk about something that we're all very passionate about, and that's a pro wrestling promo. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. We're going to do this thing every other Tuesday, but just for you guys, since it's Thanksgiving, we're going to go ahead and bless y'all next Tuesday. So be sure to check us out. Of course, look us up on your socials down below. Talk'em Pod. Very simple. Talk'em Pod. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, and we are on TikTok. So be sure to follow us, hit us up, and definitely let us know down below who talked you in the building. Shout out to y'all. Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next Tuesday. Peace.